guys, how's it going? Raiden here. I've been wanting to make a more comprehensive in-depth guide on how I play my warrior. Before we get into this video, I want to firstly make a shout out to Afro Gaming for inspiring me to make this video. Be sure to check out his channel. I will leave a link in the description down below. He has some awesome videos on how to play Greatsword, Hammer Warrior, so definitely be sure to check him out. I also wanted to address a few things as related to the balance of WvW and the mobility of Warrior, because a lot of people have been complaining that the Warrior's mobility, specifically in WvW, is too overpowered. And before I begin talking about this, this is just my opinion and what I think. So first off, WvW was never meant to be balanced due to the passive server buffs we get from our points per tick, depending on what your server, the guard buffs you get from killing NPCs like the guard leech stacks and the applied fortitude, and the food buffs as well. Since WvW is open world by nature, I feel that the strongest element is mobility in WvW, so that's where I see thieves and warriors shine the most. But more specifically talking about warriors, people say that the mobility is too strong and in general overpowered. I mean, I'll start by saying that there's two main reasons why I think warriors need this kind of mobility in WvW. The first reason is that warriors do not have access to stealth and teleports, so the mobility we get from our weapons and utilities are one of our main defensive capabilities besides immunities to kite and prolong during a fight. Which leads me to my second reason. Since warriors do not have access to stealth and teleports, this makes us the most telegraphed progression in the game. I mean, it's not that hard to dodge an Eviscerate or Earthshaker or Skullcrack, because they have a cast time of 3/4 of a second, and you can probably see that anytime. And if you just manage your dodges or use your utilities wisely, you can mitigate that damage. I just honestly think that once players spend more time learning the professions they have trouble fighting against and learning the build and mechanics, will overall significantly improve their gameplay to understand how the profession works, and they can use that to counter them when they fight. Granted, some specs will take more effort to fight than others, but that's just the way it is, because there is a lot of specs that work in WvW and PvP in general. I feel that once players begin to be more PvP focused, they will see that Warrior's mobility is not overpowered, especially if you look at it as PvP standpoint. At the end of the day, this is just my opinion again, just my 2 cents on how I feel about this topic. I enjoy playing Warrior because it's simple, it's easy to pick up, it's fun, and most importantly, it's the least stressful class to play. Getting more on topic of the video itself, I will go into detail how to improve your gameplay if you decide to try out the Axe Shield Greatsword on Warrior. I will talk about some tips and tricks in my playstyle and how I use the Warrior's mobility to control the tempo of the fight. And what I mean about the tempo is that since you have a lot of access to mobility, you control your opponent because they will have to keep up with you in the majority of the fight. So you can use this mobility aggressively, offensively, and defensively. So I will go more into detail later within the video, using examples of the clips that I have. And without further ado, let's get into my favorite part of the video, is the gear, the setup, and the build itself. The first trait line I want to address is the arms trait, so I'll address the traits from right to left. The first trait is the Forceful Greatsword. It's a very strong trait, obviously giving you might on crit, which is huge, because when you're cleaving on a down body you can stack like 25 stacks of might, and that overall increases, it gives you a lot of power, a lot of burst potential. But most importantly, I take this trait because of the cooldown you get on your Greatsword. So this allows you to kite fairly more often because you have a lower cooldown on your rush and mainly your whirlwind attack, which is really important because having an extra 2-second reduced cooldown on it gives you extra mobility and a dodge more often when you swap weapons. Moving on, I'm going to talk about the critical burst trait. 10% extra crit chance when you use a bursting skill, so this helps with the Eviscerate. I think overall this build has around 54% crit chance base, give or take. WvW buffs give you extra that 1-2%, and then the Fury, and then adding this, so you have around 85% crit chance when you use your eviscerate. Next trait is the Fury's reaction. You get Fury and Vigor for 10 seconds when you take 10% or more damage. I mainly choose this trait because of the Fury. I mean, the Vigor is nice, but mainly I get this trait because of the Fury, because having Uptime and Fury is just overall increasing your damage, and it's really nice to have. A minor trait, Precise Strikes. This helps, complement the might stacking you get, so extra Connie damage is really nice. The next line, I feel in my opinion, is the strongest warrior trait line, is the defense line, because the traits provide a lot of value and sustain. So I'll talk about Defy Pain. This trait is just mainly personal preference on the last tree line. A lot of people, you can just customize this. I feel that Defy Pain is really nice to have, that extra passive immunity from experience when you're fighting and you have no utilities left, but you know that you have extra Endure Pain passively. You can still go aggressive when you're fighting. You can, if you don't like Defy Pain, you can switch it in for Missile Deflection or Shield Master. Those are also nice choices as well. And the next trait I want to talk about is Armor Attack. So the more toughness you have, it gets converted to power, which is always nice. Having a base of extra 160 power is always nice to have. You get more value investing in this trait. And the next trait is Cleansing Arah. Very standard trait for a lot of power builds is clearing condies when you burst, and also building adrenaline when you tank too. So when you use your Endure Pain, you're taking damage, you can stack up a lot of adrenaline really fast. Next trait is the Adrenal Health. This helps synergize with the regen signet that you have. Having extra healing when you have full adrenaline up is also nice. And then moving on to Dogged March, which is you gain regeneration and minus Connie application. Again, the regen helps synergize with Adrenal Health and regen signet, but most importantly is the minus cripple, immobilize, and chill application. Very powerful trait. And the last trait is in this line is Thick Skin. Not really that important, but it has a role, having extra 100 toughness when you're above 90% health. I mean, helps to mitigate that damage when you get opened on. Alright, next line is a very strong line as well, is the Discipline line. Destruction of Empowered, very powerful trait, because boon uptime is really prevalent now due to the ferocity nerfs. Having the extra damage when they have the boons up, you can out damage your opponent if you're having a race to see who dies first. Next trait I feel is one of the most important traits is Fast Hands. I played a warrior a lot, and I've gotten used to having a 5-second weapon swap, and it's not the same if you have like a 9-second weapon swap. It doesn't feel like you're playing a warrior. And this also grows into role on how you can upgrade your sigils, putting on your weapons, because you can swap twice and have that sigil up. It's really good. Warrior Sprint. I pick Warrior Sprint on WvW World. I mainly pick Warrior Sprint because of the mobility it provides, because I don't want to rely on my Signet of Rage or Balance Stance to have my swiftness. I like to have that extra movement speed up all the time. You can, again, this is just personal preference. This Adept trait, you can switch it off for Vigorous Stances, which is also really good as well. And lastly, Versatile Rage. Again, synergizes with Fast Hands, so if you constantly swap weapons, you build adrenaline really fast. Moving on to the gear setup, I have Berserker Armor and Trinkets. Very standard since I'm full Zerker. And Wholeback Runes, really nice to have. Minus Connie Food. Synergizes well with the Lemongrass Soup and Dogged March. So provides, it's really nice against defensively against Connies, and also the uptime synergizes with the Sigil of Battle you have and Forceful Greatsword. For my weapon setup, I have the Sigil of Battle and Leeching. A lot of people ask me why I have swapping sigils on my Greatsword. It's because I mainly see it as a defensive weapon that I usually use it for kiting, for mobility, but it can also provide additional damage. So that's why I have my swapping sigils on my Greatsword. For my axe, I have Sigil of Air. Very good sigil. Provides that extra damage every 3 seconds because you're going to crit a lot with this build. So it procs for 1.5k damage, so additional 1.5k damage basically every 3 seconds is really nice to have. And sigil strength on my shield just to have more might when I crit, more might uptime. So this is just my personal preference. You can use whatever you want for your weapon setup, sigil customization. That's entirely up to you, so you just use whatever works. Alright, time for some gameplay. 2 tips I can give which made me successful in this fight is that one is committing to your target, meaning once you stay on the target, you try to finish off that target and move on to the next one. And secondly is using your rush to give yourself some room to breathe and to set up to buy yourself some time for other utilities. So even though the Ellie is a much squishier target that recently joined the fight, I've been pressuring the Guardian for a while now, so I decided to stick on him and finish him off. And another tip here is to save. Usually you want to save your stability to get your first stomp during like an outnumbered situation, but use your stability when you really need that stun breaker when you don't have anything else as well. So after I finish off the Guardian, a warrior comes in to join the fight, and I immediately switch my target to the Ellie because she's much more squishier. Again, just trying to put some cleat pressure in, and this is a perfect example of using your rush to kite out when you are low on utilities, and I follow up with a Bull's Charge 100 Blades to finish the Ellie off. In this situation, I run into 2 fairly tanky targets, a bunker regen ranger and a support guardian. I decided to focus on the ranger instead because he applies more Connie pressure and he's a much bigger threat to me. The guardian tries to pull me with his greatsword, but I use my stability to continue my pressure on the ranger. This is another example of the passive Endure Pain trait allowing me to stun break the CC and finish the ranger off. In this fight, I'm fighting a Guardian, and a up-level Mesmer joins the fight. So I have assumed that the Mesmer is much squishier, so I decided to shift my focus onto him. Greatsword Mesmers, melee is not their strong suit, so you just try to stay aggressive and up in their face as much as possible. run into a Condi PU Mesmer. In this type of situation, you try to finish the fight as quickly as possible because the longer the fight prolongs, the worse it is for you, since they can out-sustain you with Condis. I make the mistake here of eviscerating into their scepter block that applies Torment, but this is also a good situation of using your other burst skill on your Greatsword to remove the Condis, as Cleansing Ire plays a big role into fighting this sort of class. I managed to get a good eviscerate in and managed to finish her off with an axe throw before she mass invises. In this clip I run into a fairly large group, so I'm just kiting out to draw a few away so I can fight. In this fight, I feel like the Condi Ranger is more dangerous than the warrior, so I decided to just focus him and try to finish him off. The warrior begins to notice that he's losing this fight against me, so he decides to run. But since I have the Forceful Greatsword trait, I'm able to keep up with him and chase him down all the way to the camp. Again, this is another situation to give myself some room to breathe, and I follow up with a Bull's Charge 100 Blades to finish the warrior. He manages to Vengeance and Rage Log, which is kind of funny. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the video. I hope you can find these tips helpful, and thanks for watching. Have a nice day. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.